Welcome to Slashback Cinema, the podcast where we rewind to the glory days of 70s and 80s horror movies. I'm Shawnee Luft.
And I'm Ryan Drymiller.
We miss those iconic, classy, and cheesy horror movies from our childhood, from slashers to the supernatural. So we're here to rewatch the classics that made us scream or maybe cringe a little bit, find out whether they still pack a punch or just make us laugh. Ryan, what is our nightmare fuel for today?
Fuel today in the land of nightmares is Basket Case from 1982. And
Basket Case, yes.
Yeah, this one it definitely has some of the fuel that we might be talking about.
What a movie this is. Chef Kiss. I don't think I saw this movie as a kid, but I did hear about it, and I'm aware of the fact that it has this cult following, and so I was really curious to watch it.
I'd seen it on the shelves at the video store. I knew it was a popular cult horror movie in that kind of gore, campy space. I guess I was thinking this would be more like Evil Dead 2-esque.
Okay.
He was hanging out with John Waters from his early filmmaking days for this one. So
yes, this definitely Basket Case takes place in New York, but the acting in this movie and the plot, it feels like John Waters could have made a movie like this. And it was a super cheap movie. Basket Case cost $35,000 to make. What an accomplishment for $35,000.
There was a scene in the beginning of the movie where the main character, Dwayne's trying to check into that hotel and he pulls out that wad of cash. Yeah. And I think the director later said that was actually all the disposable income they had to put against this movie was in that shot. So pretty low budget.
So you want to explain the plot of the movie?
It follows the story of this young man who's carrying around a basket, checks into a hotel, and the story unfolds from there. You quickly find out that in the basket is his deformed conjoined twin who was separated and lives in the basket, and they're out to exact revenge for the doctors who had forcibly separated them all those years ago. So it's again, the tale of revenge.
I love that he's carrying around this giant wicker basket through the streets of New York, and then he talks to it at times. I thought this movie was so fun. I found out that there's 2 sequels to the movie. There's a Basket Case 2 and 3. I don't quite understand where they're going to go based on how this movie ends. We'll get to that. But I would definitely be game to watch Basket Case 2 and 3. In fact, other movies by this director, Frank Henenlotter. I was absolutely amazed by this movie. And I'm apparently not the only one. I don't know in the version you saw, but I watched it on Tubi, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so you got to watch it with commercials. First of all, it's very weird to watch such a weird movie with commercials because every commercial is a political ad now. So it's just America's going in the toilet. Then you cut to guy carrying around his deformed twin in a wicker basket. And you're like, yeah, it does seem to be going in the toilet.
I just wanted to mention, and you probably saw this too, was that in 2017, the Museum of Modern Art selected this movie to be restored and then brought into their permanent collection, which I just would have loved to have been a fly in the wall when they were pitching that and proposing that this is the film that they needed to bring into their archives. So
I read an interview with Frank Henenlotter when the Museum of Modern Art called him and pitched the idea to restore this film, and the director said, "Have you seen this movie? Are you sure you've got the right basket case?"
Oh my God.
I didn't think the movie was ever going to show off the creature, but boy, they really pay that off. I couldn't wait to hear what you thought of this monster who's like a head and like an arm and a half and just like part of a torso. And the movie has no qualms about you're going to get to see this super weird thing. He's going to be sitting on the toilet. He's going to be walking around the room. He's going to be watching TV.
Yeah.
I love this creature.
I was similarly surprised. Like, I was thinking we'd just be in the basket. There would be like kind of that first scene where he's feeding him the hamburgers and stuff. Well, they spare no expense in showing him.
The movie cost $35,000. They spared a lot of expense.
Yes. What the hell? The brother Dwayne, he sneaks out to go on a date with the woman from the doctor's office. What was her name? Sharon. And so Belial, is that how you say his name?
Yeah. I feel like it's spelled like it should be Belial, but they say Belial. And Belial is the basket case. He's the brother who was separated from Dwayne, the main character.
And so he's been left in the room in the basket, and Dwayne was nice enough to get him a TV to watch TV while he gets out on this.
Yeah.
It was the original Rage Quit video game sequence. He just freaks out, there's the TV on the ground, smashes the TV, and then
smashes a light. Yeah.
When they cut from the moment where he's being manipulated as a puppet to stop motion sequence.
Yeah.
It's so bad that you're just like,
I loved it. Yes, the stop motion is so janky.
he's like playing with some stick on the ground, then the drawers flying across the room,
Yes.
smashing.
Yes. Yeah, it's like some kind of weird, cheap Muppet, right? It's like, it's such a weird little monster. And it's fascinating. It makes these weird little crunchy noises.
Take your time, there's plenty.
And the monster doesn't really talk, but he's like telepathic with his brother. You don't really hear them talk. You just see the star of the movie, Dwayne. He'll be yelling at the basket, or sometimes he'll be talking to the creature. And the creature is making these grunty sounds, but clearly Dwayne can understand him because they have this empathic relationship from before they were separated. The plot of the movie is basically he takes his brother to New York to enact revenge on the doctors that separated him. And then one by one, he just brings his little basket to the doctor's office, opens it up, and then the little basket case hops out. This is the kind of movie where they'll cut to a wall and then somebody will take a paintbrush, throw some blood on the wall. Yes. Yeah. I feel like it really hit home for me that this is a movie made for no money, with no budget, and this is the best they could do. And good for them.
One of the reviews I wrote in the line, they had said it's like E.T. as written and directed by a psychopath.
Yes. Yeah, how would you describe the acting in this movie? There was something about it.
It's so bad and stiff, like laughably bad, but you sort of like the Dwayne character.
I'm like so charmed by everybody. Like the characters in the movie are so weird.
Yeah, the hotel manager was a standout. It could have been in Taxi, the TV show. Right. It could have been Danny DeVito's counterpart.
I think a lot of times when cheap movies are made, the actors are kind of muted. And so everyone is just kind of like washed out and gray. And this movie, every actor was so over the top with how they said things.
I'd like a room.
For how long?
I'm not sure.
A couple of hours? A couple of years? What? Give me a hint.
A few days?
Yeah. You by yourself?
Yes, alone, by myself.
All alone in this cold, cruel world.
The other thing that was kind of funny and just comically bad was like anytime something went down in that sleazy hotel they were staying at, which I made the note that this reminded me of that hostel that we stayed at on our road trip out to San Francisco. Where I think neither of us would sleep in the bed because we were so skeeved out. We slept on the floor in our sleeping bags.
Yes.
So nasty hotel, but everybody is very concerned about what's going on because as soon as some commotion goes down, everybody seems to pop out. The hotel manager runs up, like they're very hands-on.
No one ever goes to work. It has like a sitcom level of community in that, like all the people who live in the hotel just kind of hang out together all the time. They're always chit-chatting together. What I love about the acting is you said it was stiff, but to me that's not quite right because it wasn't like they were unprofessionals who were just like kind of underacting. I didn't get the feeling they were just reading their lines. They just reminded me of John Waters' characters who were just instructed to be as dramatic and insane.
I love hotel manager. He was so over the top. He was great.
Yes.
This isn't a hotel, it's a house!
So many times I just laughed at the way a character read a line. It was so funny to me. And then that little Belial, he's like the evil id of Dwayne, the main character. He's all the evil thoughts and all the evil compulsions, all the sexual desires, and all the violent desires in this little basket. And poor Dwayne is just carrying around this collection of evil thoughts that he is kind of chained to. The other thing about the movie, and this is the reason why, sincerely, I think it elevates it, is I actually was quite delighted by the relationship the two of them had. Like, Dwayne and his conjoined brother, they like really seemed to need each other. I thought it was really sweet. Dwayne would go get food for him, and the brother seemed like genuinely like appreciative and wanted to protect him. They wanted to protect each other. There's something about that I just found really charming and sweet and enjoyable to watch.
Well, it started off that way until Dwayne started growing up and getting interested in women, and Basket Case there was not happy about that. That's when it starts to take a dark turn. He starts to get jealous and losing that connection with his brother.
Are there particular scenes that stand out to you that you'd want to highlight?
There's two. One I'll talk about in my review, but the other scene was the doctor. So it was the female vet that he goes to visit and exact revenge on. And that was just so over the top and ends with the sequence of scalpels into her face.
Yeah.
It was definitely in that space of, I was thinking of Bad Taste.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson's movie
Right.
that we've both seen. And that was so over the top of the gore. This was definitely right in that space.
Did you find the gore funny or like horrifying?
No, it's funny. I do find that funny. And I almost prefer that versus like the sadistic gore.
Right.
What stood out to you?
I really liked, I'd say somewhere like an hour into the movie, they cut back to the past where they show you the childhood. You find out that Dwayne and his brother, they're conjoined. And so when they were born, it killed their mom. And his dad is like, it's a hideous monster.
No! 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 God, no! I don't even want it in the house! It should be dead instead of my wife. How could you let it be born? Why didn't you kill it before it killed her?
I like that whole sequence where the dad is freaking out and hates the creature. You can definitely tell this movie cost $35,000, and yet I felt like there was a lot of heart and sweat put into this movie. So that was my favorite part of the movie. See, that whole 20-minute flashback sequence. And then his dad, you know what I like about it is like, I feel like for the most part, the bad people get theirs. They get their comeuppance.
Right.
So the dad is a horrible person, and he hears noises in the basement and goes downstairs. Inexplicably in the basement, there is this table saw.
It's not even a table saw. It's like
How would you
what you would
describe
see
this
in like a wood mill. Wood clapboard mill.
Yeah. It looks like the only people that would have a saw that big would be magicians. And if you describe it, it sounds pretty horrible. But the way that it's filmed, they cut to the saw spinning, and then they cut to the dad's legs, and then they cut to the saw flying at him. And then they cut back to the two legs. All you're seeing is like a leg and ankle, and then they fall in opposite directions. And that's how it is communicated that the table saw cut him in half. That kind of filmmaking, I feel like you have communicated your point. I didn't need to see an actual table saw go through a guy. Bravo. No notes. Well done.
I agree. I love that scene. It was just really funny. So a segue off of that, though, what I thought didn't work as well, really is the reason that I changed my rating on this movie, was that scene where Dwayne is falling asleep in the room.
Mm-hmm.
His brother sneaks out and then goes into Sharon's room. And then there's this whole sequence that plays out with his evil other half, darker self. He's a creeper.
Yeah, yeah.
Then the way they filmed that scene, especially at the end, I was like, oh, God, I did not need to see that. I did read that a lot of the cast involved in the movie had walked off set during that scene. And Hennemanner's like, oh, I guess people all have their limits. He, like, took a star off.
Interesting.
Remake. Yeah.
It was kind of creepy, although it was so absurd. She's got this like rubber puppet on top of her. And because the acting is so over the top, I don't feel like I'm watching a crime take place. I feel like I'm watching this weird childlike nightmare. This movie definitely fits into that kind of like exploitation world of, you know what I thought it would be best to see this movie is a drive-in movie theater.
Yeah, Grindhouse. Like,
yes.
Definitely. Yeah.
And so she dies. I felt bad that she died because she didn't really do anything except just fall in love with the wrong man.
Tragic death. Yeah.
Except that that Bilal, he's got these uncontrollable urges. Like he's a bad character. And Dwayne is stuck with this brother who's like kind of an asshole and a horrible human being. And that plot, it resonated with me in the sense that I really felt for the drama of the story, even though it was such an over-the-top, ridiculous movie.
So where does that take you to for your stabby rating then?
All right, so this is going to be just as controversial as all the ratings, but I'm giving this movie 4 out of 5 stabs.
Wow.
I like this movie a lot. I would definitely watch it again. I'd recommend it to people. The fact that they managed to make this movie so cheaply. It also moves along. It's 90 minutes, so it doesn't feel like there's a lot wasted. Even when the effects are ridiculous looking, like the stop motion stuff, it just made me laugh hysterically. So I was just getting so much joy out of every scene in this movie. All right, how many did you give it?
I was in the camp of 3 stabs.
Yeah.
And then that scene just took it down to 2 stabs for me. Had that been edited differently, it just rubbed me the wrong way. But the rest of it, I was tracking. It was hilarious. I was not expecting to be a John Waters type movie. It definitely had some fun scenes, and the story had some heart. I do think that line about it being sort of like E.T. written by a psycho was kind of spot on. These bizarre, endearing characters, but ultimately a tragic ending. So we can jump to the ending there if you want to talk about that.
I understand why you didn't like that scene where Bilal goes and assaults Dwayne's new girlfriend. But in the plot, it does set up like what happens at the end, which is Dwayne and his basket case start fighting with each other, which, by the way, is so great. I love how he's carrying the basket around and like shaking it and yelling at it. It's just a guy talking to a wicker basket.
No, never again. She was good. She was pure. She wasn't one of them.
There's just something about the way in which he's arguing with his own id. He's arguing with his own worst impulses. It wouldn't have surprised me had there been no brother all along. It was just him. But it was so much more fun that there was this little creature. Because the creature has assaulted and then, I guess, murdered that woman, Dwayne and Bilal start arguing and fighting with each other. And then Dwayne and his brother go flying out the window. And so Dwayne is hanging onto Bilal and Bilal is hanging onto the sign. And then Bilal and Dwayne drop and they hit the ground, and then people are surrounding their dead bodies. And it really reminded me of the ending of King Kong with the monster and the girl at the end. Like, there was definite affection for the two of them. And you can't tell for sure, but I assume they died. Although I noticed in the Wikipedia description, it just says at the very end that they got knocked unconscious.
Which it looked like they died, but it clearly that was the path to Basket Case 2 and 3.
I guess that's supposed to be like open-ended. It didn't look open-ended to me when they hit the ground.
One thing I did notice, and it shows up prominently in the movie, it's the Hotel Broslin sign. It's that neon sign. It's in the ending there where they're hanging off of that sign and they fall to the ground. And so I was curious, like, is this an actual place in New York? And apparently it was not. But if you look up Hotel Broslin, it is actually a website that features all of his movies, so you can dig in, and it's got the neon sign. I thought that was kind of a fun little Easter egg where you can learn about the director and all of his films.
So I know it's going to be controversial, my 4 stabs. However, I want to point out that the Museum of Modern Art did not reach out to any other directors in movies we've seen and select these other movies for preservation. So
you have a good point there, Shawnee. You know, you could be on the right side of history here. I just needed a different cut on that scene, and I would have been at 3 stabs.
What did you think of the little monster face? I was curious. You're a connoisseur of monster creatures.
You know, for what it was, I thought it was pretty over the top and kind of funny, horrifying, but funny at the same time. And then it sort of changed a bit in different scenes. The one part towards the end where his eyes glowing like a nightlight out of his eyeballs.
Yeah.
So like, what the hell?
It really felt like it was like the vision of one creative person. Like, this guy had this idea and he followed through with it. And so you're seeing the movie that this guy wanted to make exactly as he wanted to make it. And so there's something to that I just found like good for him. The guy's an artist.
Well, he did say he had this idea and he didn't want to lose the momentum, so he just went for it and went faster than he should have at times. But he talked specifically about the Hotel Rage sequence where he had no experience doing stop motion animation. He just did it himself and filmed it quickly because he was impatient. He just wanted to get the scene done. And he later watched it. It's horrible. I hate it. Then he came back to it and he's like, I'm just putting it in there. It is what it is. And it obviously is one of those standout scenes. So
as cheap as this movie is, the motivation of each character and what they're trying to accomplish and whether or not they succeed, it's crystal clear what the storyline is.
Yeah, and more believable than Altered States, apparently. So, you know.
Yeah, I gave Altered States 1 star, Sasuke Case 4.
I feel like people are gonna listen to this and be like, "What the hell is wrong with these guys?"
But I do feel like, all right, well, this will communicate to the public what kind of movies we're interested in and what resonates with us. But
I'm seeing the dial slowly click a little bit more towards B called Grindhouse, so we'll see where this all goes. All right, you want to close us out?
Thank you for listening to Slashback Cinema. If you liked this episode, please subscribe, send us a note. What did you think of the movie? We love hearing stories from people who have seen these movies or they resonate with them. So please share your story with us on social media. We've got, what do we got?
We got Instagram, we got TikTok. Visit us on the website, flashbackcinema.com.
And tell your friends about Slashback Cinema.
Please, help us out.